Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, President of the Senate. Good morning, colleagues. Yes, I want to thank the Presidium for having afforded us the opportunity as honorable members to have this opportunity today, this morning, to redo this very important section because I think the ministry has changed its functions for quite some time, and it's important that as honorable members, we know which functions the ministry is, overseeing, so that you can be able to follow as we do our day-to-day operations or overseeing in our respective constituencies. I will start by giving you the overview of the ministry. The vision of the ministry is to socially and economically empower women and resilient communities, enjoying gender equality in the small and medium enterprise-driven economy by the year 2030. And the overview or mandate of the ministry is to mandate policies, to implement policies, projects, programs for women empowerment, gender equality and resilient communities, cooperatives, and small and medium enterprises development, and coordinate stakeholders in the sectors. It oversees women affairs and gender departments, community development, small and medium enterprise development, cooperative development, legal services, audit, finance and administration, human resources development. The functions of the ministry are to formulate, recommend, implement, coordinate, and evaluate policies, strategies, and programs that promote women empowerment, gender equality, community, cooperative, and micro, small, and medium enterprises development. Develop and promote value chains for goods and services produced by women, communities, cooperatives, and micro, small, and medium enterprises. Provide, coordinate, and facilitate technical and entrepreneurship skills and management training that support the empowerment of women, communities, cooperatives, and micro, small, and medium enterprises. Promote equal and equitable access, control, and ownership of resources in order to address gender inequalities. The functions of the ministry are to ensure prevention and response mechanisms to reduce all forms of gender-based violence, develop and maintain through research, databases, and publications on women empowerment, gender communities, cooperatives, and micro, small, and medium enterprises. Coordinate research work and publications on gender and provide gender-sensitive information and sex disaggregated data for use in planning and project implementation at all levels and in all sectors. Provide support for technology access and development for women, community, cooperatives, and micro, small, medium enterprises. Administer development funds for women, communities, cooperatives, and micro, small, and medium enterprises. Administer all acts assigned to the ministry. This is why I requested the Presidium yesterday to say it would be important, and I am really grateful that you allowed us time to really give this background to honorable members that they know the functions and the vision of the new ministry, as it is very, very critical and important for all members to understand and know what it entails in its present form. I will then take a seat and allow Mr. Dumba, as already indicated by the chair, to go through the achievements of the ministry, as he is well versed with the activities of the ministry more than I. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will now allow Mr. Dumba to take the podium and deal with the issues as presented in the report of the chairperson for the ministry. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, Advocate Jacob Mutenda, the President of the Senate, Madam Madzongwe. I'm sorry. My apologies. Sorry. My apologies for the slip of the tongue. The President of Senate, Madam Chinomona, honorable members of Parliament here present, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to apologize again for the slip of the tongue. The President of the Senate is Honorable Chinomona. Madam, my apologies for the slip of the tongue. Let me start by acknowledging the very informative report which our chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Women Affairs presented yesterday. I want to acknowledge on behalf of my minister that the Portfolio Committee has indeed been standing by the side of the ministry, has been supporting the ministry in all its programs, in all its plans. And we want to thank them very much for that kind of support. We also acknowledge the observations that were contained in the report and wish to say that the ministry has done quite a lot in terms of addressing those observations. First of all, I'll quickly go through the observations related to the audit that was published sometime 2017-2018. The first aspect that was highlighted was that which relates to the non-repayment of loans. As you are aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, Madam President, honorable members, the ministry administers two important funds, the Women's Development Fund and the Zimbabwe Community Development Fund. Those two funds target marginalized people in terms of supporting the projects which they'll be embarking on. These are normally in the form of income-generating projects. So, what audit observed mostly were those loans that were administered way back around 2010-2011. And it is true that repayment of those loans was not as good as we would have expected. The reasons, I would say, are also related to the macroeconomic environment in which we are operating. We have got projects that were supported in mining, projects that were supported in agriculture, projects that were supported in various other sectors of the economy. And because of the harsh economic conditions that still persist in our economy, of course, those marginalized groups, marginalized women, marginalized communities, also found it difficult sometimes to repay those loans, despite the efforts which the ministry would have put to train them in business management. So I would compare that scenario to some of the companies that are also, having it difficult to operate in the environment. I think you'd agree with me, honorable members, that you also have companies that are folding up because of, conditions that are difficult. But I want to assure you that loans that have been extended thereafter, the repayment rate has improved greatly, because in line with devolution, we have also made sure that those projects which are sponsored at various levels would have, the members of the local communities, being a part of identifying those projects, being a part of monitoring those projects, being a part of selecting those projects. And we have found this to be very useful. I would also want to acknowledge that with the approval by this Public Service Commission of a monitoring and evaluation department within the ministry, the repayment of loans has greatly improved. We now have a dedicated department which is headed by a deputy director, and this has really improved the loan repayments. Our portfolio committee also observed the issue of motorbikes, which had been bought some time back, but had not yet been distributed. The reasons for they are not being distributed, include the fact that it also took us some time to train those who were going to be utilizing those motorbikes. But I'm glad to report that the training has been completed, and all these motorbikes have since been distributed to the provinces and districts. The motorbikes are being effectively utilized for monitoring some of these projects, which is why I'm happy to report that even the loan repayments has improved. There were difficulties. You can imagine some of our staff who are even in the wards would not even have a bicycle. I think you are aware of the size of the wards. These are vast, and these would be covered by a single officer who has got to move around that ward to be monitoring the performance of projects, be providing feedbacks. So those motorbikes have been distributed, and they are proving to be very effective. Integration with SMEs was another observation. I'm glad to report that this integration has since been completed, and staff has been split as to those who are under the Ministry of Women Affairs and also those who went to industry and commerce. What we are essentially finalizing is the issue of, the distribution of assets between the two ministries. And progress is going on very well. Our chairperson also raised the issue of shortfalls on our approved establishment, where indeed more than 50% is unmanned. I want to acknowledge that the Public Service Commission has now approved the filling up of those posts, and we've already identified from some of the officers who became access to establishment in certain ministries because of restructuring, but those who possess necessary qualifications to be able to fill those positions. So I want to thank the Public Service Commission for responding fairly quickly to our request. I want to alert Mr. Speaker, Madam President, honorable members, to our dilemma, particularly in the Matabeleland regions, where we are finding it extremely difficult to be able to recruit what we call the ward development coordinators. And this is, it's a fact. It's a fact. And I'll be able to, that we have had difficulties in having people applying and taking up positions as ward development coordinators. Can I proceed?
Thank you. Honorable members, can we allow Mr. Dumba to explain why before we can actually heckle at him? Please, I'm pleading with you. Let him explain. Zwanini, kumele sizwe first ukuthi uza kuthini. Kwafeyila njani. Anju. I'm pleading with you, honorable members. Can we get as to why? Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The fact of the matter is that advertisements have been placed. We have even in the press, and
When was that done?
it was.
Just explain.
Hello.
When was that? Can
It
you
was.
just say when?
Advertisements were placed in the press around.
Just say when.
I want.
Yeah, just
It was around July, August, and we have got staff. We have got staff who are at provincial level, district level, who have been asked. And I think let me also take this opportunity, because it is a fact. Because it is a fact. It is a fact, honorable members. It is a fact that we do not have the ward development coordinators in those areas. That is the fact. We do not have ward development coordinators in those areas because
Present that point in class. Move on. Proceed.
okay. Can I proceed?
Hello, honorable members. We will get into plenary where you then have to ask Mr. Dumba on why. Hello? Order, please. Honorable members, I think it's almost getting to the end so that you can dwell on that. Okay. Yeah. Aiwa, chirega vapedzese presentation yavo. Regai vapedzese presentation yavo mozobvunza. I will allow the minister to, yes. Okay, to finish. From where is left?
Okay, okay. I hear you. I hear you. I am the acting minister, and it so happens that the minister who is away also comes from Matabele and North. I will want to find out why we have had that problem. So just calm down, let him continue so that we make progress. Our appeal to you.
Thank you. Our portfolio committee also raised the issue. Our portfolio committee also raised the issue of visibility of the ministry on the ground. And I want to report that the ministry now has an approved establishment which works for the public relations of the ministry. And I think we definitely are going to see an improvement in terms of the visibility of the ministry on the ground. Now, let me proceed to the issue of the achievements which the ministry has been able to register in the year that we are reporting on. Let me look at the issue of women empowerment and gender mainstreaming. The issue of women empowerment and gender mainstreaming, we've been able to set up a one-stop centers for survivors of GBV. We've been able to support projects. About 56 women's groups have been funded this current year. We've also been able to conclude MOUs on cooperation with Namibia, Zambia, and DRC regarding the export of products from women-supported business enterprises. Then in terms of community development, we have also been able to refurbish 3 national handicraft centers, one at Great Zimbabwe, one at Binga, one at Biriri in Chimanimani. We have also been able to establish, refurbish, and capacitate community-based centers for entrepreneurship and skills development. We have also been able to refurbish the conference hall at Jamaica Inn Training Center and also at Roger Hauman. We have also completed the refurbishment of Dambatsoko Community-Based Center in Mashonaland Central and also completed the construction of the Gweluchena Community-Based Center in Matabeleland North. We have also been able to fund 20 community projects involving various projects that are supported by the ministry under the Community Development Fund. Let me also acknowledge that in terms of budgetary support, I think this year saw quite a significant improvement in the level of support that Treasury has allocated to us. I want to attribute this to a general recognition by Treasury of the importance of gender mainstreaming. I think even in the budget statement, the Honorable Minister of Finance was able to reiterate that, in the allocation of budgets, gender issues needed to be mainstreamed. And I think this is quite commendable. And we have seen an improvement in terms of the provisional allocations from about 53 million that was allocated in 2019 to the current projected about 80-something million. But we are saying we had requested for about 400 million in the year 2020, and the provisional allocation, which is around 83 million, would not be enough for us to be able to carry out the mandates which the Honorable Acting Minister has already talked about. So we want to ride on the goodwill which Treasury has already demonstrated to build upon this and improve on the allocation that has already been made. So some of the areas that we are saying, despite having been bidded for, have been excluded, include I think we wanted to establish more community entrepreneurship development centers across the country. We wanted to increase support to national handicraft centers across the country. We also wanted to establish women enterprises around the Tokwem Kosi and also in Kanyemba, but we have not essentially received enough budget support in those areas. And it is our plea that Treasury would be able to address, those shortcomings. On that note, Mr. Speaker, sir, Madam President, honorable members, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dumba. And a round of applause for Mr. Dumba for that presentation. Thank you very much. We have exactly 20 minutes. And as you take the floor, bear in mind that we are lagging behind on today's proceedings. So the floor is now open for questions, comments, and please kindly proffer solutions, alternatives. Thank you. I'll start from this way. Yes, Honorable Chinotimba. I want three from here. Yes, the lady in yellow, I can't see. Who is that one? Yes, Honorable in yellow. And then, yes, yourself and yourself. 4 here. In that order, please. Honorable Chinotimba, and then as you take the mic, kindly introduce yourself. Please avoid making presentations. I'll stop you if you start making a presentation. Thank you. Because we have had 2 presentations. Thank you.
Chair maita yenyu, mfunzo wangu uri kuna minister. Ndiruko da usoka chitsa umwe munhu. Ndiruko da usoka chitsa munhu ari pamberi pangu.
Honorable Chinotimba, just ask your question.
Mfunzo wangu kana kuti azvisina nere minister mumawadzi wayo ari kunzi havana vanhu since vechita ma-advertisement yenyu moshaya vanhu. Hazvisina nere kuti muende exactly in those wards kana padistrict paine vanhu kuti mundoona kuti why mawadziwo chishaya vanhu, because atingashaya vanhu nyika inene vanhu vakadzidza kupinda nyika dzose. Saka zvisina nere kuti muende kumawadzi iwayo direct kuti mundotsvaga vanhu imomo than advertising. Maybe ma-advertising yenyu aburukita vanhu havasi kumawana yeti pa district tine vanhu vanenge varipo. I thank you.
Kindly take the roving mic to the honorable at the back. At the back. No, at the back. Please.
Engikhulumayo ibizo lami kuthiwa ngingu Mama Ustaz Mathe, MP weNkayi South constituency. Khonapha eMathebeleland North. Okuthiwa akulabantu khona. Sithanda ukuthi Hallo, ngithanda ukuzehlisa ngaphansi kukababa wethu uSpeaker ubaba uMtenda, umama uPresident weSenate kunye labasekeli babo and all protocols observed. Mina umbuzo wami usekutheni ama-ward coordinators aswele kanjani singabikwazi lathi esikhonapha amalunga edale leParliament esisebenzela khonapha eMathebeleland North asizanga siuzwe umkhankaso wokumemezela labo bantwana. Isolution yami ngiyipha ngokulokhu, ngiyipha ngokuthi kufanele basebenzise indlela esetshenziswa ngamanye ama-ministries. Amanye ama-ministries nxa e-advertiser lakithi ama-members edale leParliament esicina sikwazi sibancedise. We have had army recruiting, we have had police, all ministries siyabancedisa ukufikisa ilizwi ebantwini. Kanti ke ngenxa yokuthi vele asilamagaga abantu beMathebeleland North abanengi abafinyeleli efonini, kodwa ku-MP angabakwazi lendlela zokufikisa information ku-ground. So your ministry which you are representing, Minister Gumbo, ngayibe kwazi ukuthi MP they are the best people to take messages to the ground. Bese ngikhangela i-services zayo i-ministry yona le small medium and enterprises include ku ground qiniso and isibonelo sayo yikhona ukuthi kusukela lama coordinators ayikho ku ground, ayibonakali ku ground. Angikhulume kubukwa kumbe nje meli kuzonda kumbe ukuthabisa. Ngikhulumela ukuthi inkulumo enjengayonale, if you can play a cassette where we were at Bulawayo Rainbow Inn, I myself aba uchinotimba honorable Chinotimba labanye abanengi abanthayo sakhala ngenan available on the ground, hence we
May we kindly have a better mic than the one that the honorable is using. Quickly, please.
Hallo. Ngicabanga ukuthi enqanyele izaba ngcono. Bengithe mina into engicabanga ukuthi alizwanga. Ngithe mina nxa lingavula back to is pre-budget seminar esaba la holiday in Ngobulayo last year. The same MPs who have spoken, and maybe abanye abazalandela after I've spoken, are the same people who also stood up to say and reflect to this gathering ukuthi i-ministry le is not on the ground. Ayibonakali. Sicela improve. We budget for this ministry yearly, but ama results and how they spend their budget asikuboni ku ground. Please, siyacela. Okwenza ngibe concerned. I'm not worried about my own constituency. I'm worried about the whole of Zimbabwe.
Honorable Machi.
Yes.
I said one per person because you have others who also want to take the floor. Now you are making a presentation.
No, madam. I'm not making a presentation, but I'm...
Please.
I'm not making a presentation.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not. I mean, that's my concern.
Yes,
That's my
because
concern.
after your last consent, then we
Okay.
take off the mic.
Okay. While I'm still on this one, I'm not going to the next. I'm still on this subject. Yoguti, i-ministry lay imela omama, imela abantwana, and ilizwe leZimbabwe leli lilabantwana abanengi benza i-percentage enengi labo mama kulabo baba. And ungananzelela nxa i-ministry eqakatheke kangaka ingatholakali ku ground, then we are not doing any service to our people, because our people are mainly on women and the children. Siyacela an emphasis, a seriousness in this ministry. Kumbe I suggest chairperson ukuthi iseparate maybe nxa engxenye kunengi kakhulu to one ministry. I suggest that these omama labantwana ba separate le SMEs ukwenzela ukuthi konke kuhambe ku computer on the ground, because yibo ama key people that makes this community. Ngiyabonga.
Wait, I gave people their numbers. Yes, the honorable, just in front of Honorable Machi, yes.
Yes, thank you
That's
very
Honorable Pulo, Anju.
Yebo.
Okay.
Ucaca phulu ngimele inkulumani. Bengithanda ukuthi ngibonge ipresentation ebikhona. Bese ngisithi ngizwe engani ukhulume ngokuthi abantu abaphiwa izimali ama loans behlule ukuthi babhadala ama loans lawa back to the ministry. Wasusebenza ukuthi kakhulu ubukhuluma abantu ama vulnerable marginalized groups. Bathi bangaphiwa izimali behluleke ukuthi bazibisele. Besingazwanga ukuthi like la dingisisa lathola isizathu sokuthi kungani besehluleka ukubhadala izimali lezo. Ukwenzela ukuthi kube kusegcekeni ngoba asifuni ukuthi behluleke ukuthi ukubhadala ngenxa yokuthi bavele ba marginalized. Kodwa sithole izizathu zakhona bese siku addressa ku budget. Awuboni ngazani kungakuncedisa yini? Okwesibili, I think this one is not a key point, but ukuthi ngabe uthe iministry yakho ibe lama challenges ekutholeni ama coordinator. Hayi khona ukuthi kule difficulty eMatabeleland yokuthi akula abantu abafuna ukuba ama coordinator. Mbone ngani bekuzaphuma ngcono. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you. I move on to the Middle Bay. Yes, Mama. And then the one in red, I can't see who that one is. That's my Honorable Chikwama. And the one at the back in a gray suit in the middle. Yeah. In that order, those three.
Thank you.
We are rushing against time. Thank you.
Ngiyabonga Honorable Chair. Mina engikhulumayo nginguSenator Alice Dube ovela eMatabeleland North Province lapha esikhona namhlanje. Ngiphose ngangazwisisi kuhle lapha nxa kuthiwa ama ward coordinators ayaswelakala. Silesicelo Honorable. Sicela abantwana bengaqhatshwa ngeInternet. Thina emakhaya abantwana balayo iInternet. Ungakhuluma mina lapha evela khona eCholocho khona lemakhaya emagusini ephela indaba ezinyamazaneni vela bayazi lento okuthiwa yiWhatsApp. So isikhathi esiningi ama ministries ayasebenzisa okuthiwa yi-online okuncindezela abantwana bangapha ukuthi vele bengatholakali. Abantwana ilist ikhona kuwonke ama constituencies kuwonke ama member of parliament balawo ama list abantwana bonke aba qualify ama youth wonke ngama qualifications zabo. Siyabonga.
Yes, Honorable Chikwama.
Maita yenyu mbato wechigaro ndokuremekedza imese muri muno. Ini nyaya yangu ndeyekuti paripoti handiwirirani nezvazvitaurwa nyaya dzemacoordinator, nokuti mukatarira kumaarea kwedu kuna vamwe vakatomboitwa interview vane maqualification asi havana kana kutombopinda. Tinokumbirawo kuti musaita operation yekuhead office. Kana muchitaura zvemuhead office nokumusha zvakasiyana, mungava mutaundi kungava kumusha, endai kumawadi ndokwamunononzwa information yekuti zvakamira sei. Hamugoni kuti munoshayiwa vanhu. Kune vanhu vakadzidza zvakadero. Zvinorwadza vamwe kuita mainterview vangu vaine madegree. Mozotaura kuti hamuna kuvapinza basa racho 2009 havana kuwana basa racho ende mozotaura futi kuti kuri kushayikwa vanhu. Ministry yenyu kumba uko hainko. Dei matochema nyaya dzokuti hamuna chokufambisa nokuti vanhu venyu vari kumaofisi vanongogara muofisi sekwakaita kwagutu pagutu ofisi paya haana kana operation yokunoona zviri kumusha. Maloni omunotaura mukatarira vanhu vanotowana maloni ka vanhu vamwe vasitombori kumusha kuna mamai omunoda kusevha. Vanhu vakangongwara-ngwarawo vana Sofia vakangoita machadzi okuwana maloni. Mai chaivo vane nidhi vari kumusha hakuna unosvikako. Tinokumbirisa nokuti atonetsekawo neministry yenyu. Indakatenda kuministry yenyu kasingaperi vheni nyaya dzechingwa hamuvaoni. Vanoti hatina chokufambisa hakuna vanhu saka
Okay,
vanhu
Honorable
vanoshayikwa.
Chwama. Thank you.
Vanhu havashayikwi vakazara vakadzidza.
Order, please, so that we move.
Hello.
We are left
Yes.
with 9 minutes.
Yeah. I am Honorable Christopher Chingosho of Headlands constituency. I belong to the Committee of Women Affairs. In the committee, our concern has always been that the ministry is not, when it comes to budget, the ministry is not taken seriously. But my concern, which I also want asking the speaker to take to the minister of the ministry, is that the ministry itself does not take itself seriously. How can we fail in this important meeting which takes place once in a year, fail to get the minister and even the permanent secretary? Thank you.
Thank you. The last one was Honorable Hama Oswa. Then we move on to this way. We have 3 in this way, then we have responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question to the ministry is that don't you think it is prudent that you separate women affairs and SMEs? The SMEs, I propose, should be a stand-alone ministry for the reason that SMEs are actually becoming the engines that will transform this economy. And if you check on the bids, they are talking of increase in the bids for women affairs, but they are not talking about SMEs, which then requests for a clear definition of SMEs. If we check the definition which says a company that employs 5 to 40 people is an SME, then it means we are leaving a lot of SMEs without support. Thank you.
Thank you for the solution that you have proffered, and I hope the ministry is taking notes on that. I saw a hand, Honorable Misai Rambui, and then Honorable Chief there. And can I take the 2 honorable ladies? Yes, I'll be biased against that because it's their ministry.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm going to just start with a solution. I think the problem we are facing, and this is why members keep talking about year after year after year, this ministry causes the most problem when we are at a pre-budget. I think it's a strategic problem. This ministry is supposed to be a gender mainstreaming ministry. It is not mainstreaming its activities. One example, because we don't have time, if you look at the issues around loans, you can't have a loan with a bank in Harare. We have got POSB, which the minister was saying they want to privatize. Why are we not having the desks so that women that are at community level are able to go and access resources where they are? So it's really a problem around issue of gender mainstreaming. Every ministry should have something to do with women. It doesn't matter what that ministry is. But they think themselves they can change a whole system by doing work as one ministry. And this is why we have the problems that we are talking about today. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Randwin Shonga. Honorable Chief.
Maita enche indodango betsera vanga vachitaura kuti vanonetseka nokuwana macoordinator. Ndanjida kuvazivisawo kuti isu samadzimambo tiriko kumusha kana manetseka munouya tokubetserai kuti zvinhu zvenyu zvivambe zvakadi zvakanaka. Maita eni.
Honorable Ncube. Honorable Ncube. Yes. And yourself, Honorable in purple, and then I'll end up with the Honorable in grey. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of the things that I wanted to say have been said, but what I want to say is that this ministry is not serious. Because you cannot, the minister cannot absent herself year in, year out in a program that is done once a year. That shows that this ministry is not serious. Let the minister be serious. Let the minister come and say what the problems that they are facing as a minister, than not to assign someone. I think next year when we are doing the 2021 budget,
Order,
the
please.
minister has to
Can she be heard in silence?
has to be serious and come and attend this budget, because yesterday it was said that members came here because of the incentive. I think the minister is just looking for the incentives. That's why she left this and went outside the country. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Ndlovu.
Thank you. I belong to this ministry. I belong to this committee. Indaba ekhona.
Your name, please.
Oh, my name is Stella Ndlovu, Member of Parliament for Luveve constituency in Bulawayo. Indaba ekhona nxa sihamba
Order, please.
Thank you.
The Minister of Justice is dressed in a very nice African attire. Thank you very much. Clap hands for him, please, so we can move. Okay, Honorable Ndlovu, please.
Omama bakhala ngendaba ye Women's Bank. The issue is collateral. Omama abala collateral. Sicela i-ministry yethu ikhangele indaba ye collateral. Ukwenzela ukuthi omama bathole izimali Women's Bank. The other thing is nxa ukhangela ama statistics abantu asebethole imali ku Women's Bank, Matabeleland, Mat South, Bulawayo, Mat North, akula abantu abayitholileyo imali when you look at this balutshwana kakhulu. So we have a problem ekhona. Matabeleland is being marginalized. Can the minister akhangele indaba ye Matabeleland seriously? Ngoba we are not happy even from what we heard from the last speaker. We are not happy as Matabeleland. So siyacela ukubana uminister wethu akasukume ame akhangele izindaba zabo mama. We constitute 52% in this country, and ministry yethu ilele vele balele lingaze lihlangane labo emhlanganweni balele. We have turned them away so many times ukuthi kabayelungisa izinto zabo kwenzela ukuthi baphenduke. Thank you.
Thank you. The last one will be Honorable Nyamdeza, and then we get, yes,
Hello?
Nyamdeza, then we get responses. We need to move on. I am sorry if I've disappointed you. I know you have a lot to say, but I think we are rushing against time. Thank you. Honorable Nyamdeza will be the last one.
Mazwita netwas bonle Nyamdeza MP Chipinge West. Ministry yetu, I'm a member of this committee, small to medium enterprises. Dambudziko rao vanosunamisa zvinhu. Pane agricultural projects anoita kune mvura yakawanda. Tine projects atakavhizitira mairi ekuti takaenda kwachivi kune mvura shoma onzi voita garden asi mvura inopera panguva yekudi yekupisa. Ipapo munoti munhu anosobhadhara chikwete chacho sei mvura ichipera. Takaenda futi kuMatebeleland South. KuMatebeleland South vanoita zvemaqimbi. Unoona kuti it's a viable project yekuti vanoita zvemaqimbi, vanoita zvembudzi, voita zvemombe. Saka problem yeministry ndeyekuti vanosunamisa zvinhu. Kunoita magarden kunowanda mvura ndo kunokwanisa kuitwa magarden akakura. Uku warecommend handizivi kuti vanhu vanotarisa vacho vanofanira kuwana someone anoziva agriculture vakufanda agricultural projects. Then kumutoko kune garden racho kure nemarket. Marketing kure nemarket kune garden racho. Kuti munhu anokwira bhazi kuda kotengesa muriwo ikoko. Saka zvinhu zveministry zvakasunama. Chekupedzisira chanoda kutaura. Chekupedzisira chandingareketa ndicho.
Order, honorable members.
Chekupedzisira ndechekuti tine biriri craft project. Biriri craft project toya yekubhinga toya Zimbabwe toya Zimbabwe ruins. Kubiriri market ye kubiriri project iri very low unlike pa Zimbabwe ruins nepa bhinga. Saka zvimwe zvacho ma projects echiestablishwa anoda kuoneka nemarket kuti market iri padhuze zvakadini Mazvita.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We now go to responses by the acting minister, Dr. Gumbo, and then the chief director, Mr. Dumba, to respond in that order, please. Thank you. Can we have some silence, honorable members, so that we get to hear on the comments, questions, and solutions that you have actually proffered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Speaker, say, Advocate Mzenda, and Madam President Shinomona, I am extremely vindicated by the request I made yesterday to say that this is a very important committee. You can see the interest being shown by colleagues, and that there is not even enough time. They still have issues with the ministry. And as the acting minister, I've taken notes of the concerns raised by my colleagues, and I will, in the same manner, in the same spirit, and with the same vigor and spirit, bring them to the minister, who actually happens to be a minister who comes from Matebeleland North. That having been, having said that, Mr. Speaker, say, Honorable Chinotimba, your question, and Honorable Stars Nyoni, Honorable Stars, sorry, Stars Mate. You know, there's been a lot of...
Order, honorable members.
There's been a lot of noise, so at times you get to mix the names. Honorable Stars, Honorable Timber, your issue is the same. It's about the concern about why we can't have ward coordinators in the province with the qualifications. And the concern is that as honorable members, we are so connected with our constituents, and we know that there are people who qualify for, to take up these jobs. And if the information is given to us as honorable members, we can always assist in the employment of these ward coordinators. I will take that with the honorable minister when she comes back. Honorable Pule wanted to find out why there is a failure for repayment of loans. I take that that it is important to find out why. Maybe there is something wrong in the allocations, and to who are being given those loans. Do they really qualify? And on what basis are they given those loans? Are they just given those loans because of other reasons when they cannot be able to repay those loans? Honorable Dube, I think the matter is still the same. It is about the concern about employment of ward coordinators, that if we use internet or any other forms of communication, that information might not be able to reach most of our people or or students that might want to apply for those jobs. Honorable Chikwama, you are saying it's all about the issue of ward coordinators. They are found at Gutu. Gutu is the growth point, but maybe there is no visibility in the rural areas in the whole of the district of Gutu. So the concern is about the visibility of the ministry in the whole of Gutu district. I think is again the issue of visibility. So I will take that again. I'm taking those notes so that I can bring them to the attention of the minister when she comes back. Honorable Chungosho, you are talking about the budget constraint, and you are saying that the minister or the ministry is not serious. I will tell them that they are not serious. I'll put it as you put it. That's the way I can only put it. Honorable Amusa, Amausa, you are talking of the separation of the ministry's activities. As I indicated yesterday, that there are so many activities that are being allocated to this ministry. And your proposal is that we should be separating SMEs from women's affairs. I'll take it and give it to the minister for her consideration. Honorable Ms. Iram, we thank you very much for that contribution. I don't think I need to repeat what you say. It's really a given. I don't know whether I can add because I totally agree with your suggestion. And then, Honorable Chief, surely, Chief Mshonga, you live with the people and you can always assist. Mazishe ndimwe munogara nevanhu munovaona vanava, saka munoziva vana vanonetsekana nemuzvikoro vakapasa, saka ichokwadi ndazvinzwa, saka ndinofunga ndichavataurira minister kana tavaona. And then Honorable Ncube, you also hammered the point that the minister should be available year in, year out, that's the hammering. Year in, year out, the minister is not there, and this time maybe the minister and the permanent secretary are not there. Why, and why? I will bring that to their attention. Honorable Ndlovu, you are talking about the collateral marginalized. Yes, you are talking of maybe Matebeleland being marginalized. Yes, one would say so. If you say that you cannot get ward coordinators, who maybe are just the people who might just have in 5 O levels qualifications, and you say the whole of Matebeleland, from Matebeleland south to north, Pulawayo, and you can't get people with those qualifications, then you might feel like you are being marginalized. I think that's the issue that the minister has to look into. And I will be taking that with the Honorable Minister. Honorable Nyamudeza, you are talking about agricultural project. Kutikoma akasunama, yazi mina ngiyakhuluma, ndinotaura kusunama kuita upside down. Yes, kuti kana tiri kuBite Bridge, kana kumanama, kuna Macimbi, towanikidza kuti kune project isati iri yaMacimbi, toenda kune imwe nzvimbo ine kwaMutoko kuna Madomasi, ndokwakuitwa project isingafambidzani nezvamadomasi, kuti mapriorities haasi kufambidzana zvakanaka. Zvinotaura kuti panenge pane urongwa hunenge husina kumira zvakanaka. Ndichazviisa zvese izvozvo kuna minista venyu. Mondiregerera, ndichataura zvazviri sezvazviri, ndiri kuacta, saka ndichataura zvichemo zvenyu kuna minista, nokuti hapana minista vacho pazuva ranhasi ende handikwanisi kuvapindurira, asi ndichaisa zvichemo zvataurwa kana kuti zvikumbiro zvataurwa nemwi, all the requests that have been made and the grievances that have been made and other I can see that it's quite, Mr. Speaker, maybe I'm not looking behind. Everybody is raising their hands. They want to say something about this ministry. I think something needs to be done. And you knowing me, having been your chief whip for 15 years, I will whip the minister into line.
Thank you.
I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for that assurance and your reaction to the comments and questions. Let me just give 5 minutes to the Chief Director so that we wind up our discussion. Thank you. Order, please. Order. Yes. Mike.
Chair, on a point of order,
Yes.
we are really here to listen to the executive, the politicians that are there. I really think it is unfair to bring the director back. We've already heard from the minister, he's taking the issues,
Okay.
it is okay.
Okay. Thank you. And with that reaction and point, if we do agree, let me thank the minister and the director, and thank you all for your live debates and solutions. And Honorable Speaker.
Excuse me. I sympathize with the acting minister. There are there's a difficult proposition that cannot be handled by the minister. I think the Honorable Dr. Gumbo is in a privileged position as a minister in the presidency. The question of splitting the ministry is a presidential decision. And I would rather not that you embarrass the minister, raise the issue with His Excellency the President. That it is the feeling of Parliament that the ministry may be huge and therefore creating some problems. More so, as the Minister of Finance indicated, our economy is driven by the SMEs. So this has a direct impact on our national economy. So if you could upscale the issue accordingly. Secondly, what seems to be coming out again, raised by I think 3 honorable ministers, honorable members, is the question of lack of strategic plan in the ministry. And that didn't come out. You cannot run a ministry without a strategic plan. That must speak to your budget, that must speak to the national agenda as espoused by the President. So that's another area I think that needs to be highlighted. We didn't also get some indication that the ministry has been involved in some comparative studies. For example, how Bolivia transformed the informal sector, and I think the Minister of Finance will agree with me, and reduced the informality of the informal sector by a deliberate policy by government in order to upscale the economic status and operation of SMEs. Bolivia is a good example, and they've achieved it. On the question of managing loans, there's the issue of the experience from Bangladesh. Honorable Minister of Finance, who is the gentleman who started the small banks in Bangladesh? Grameen Bank. Yes, Yusuf Mohammed. You need to learn from other jurisdictions where the question of how they tackle the question of giving loans without collateral. And they've got a success story to tell from which we can learn. So I think the ministry must try to think outside the box. So I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I hope and trust that the ministry officials will take note of what the Speaker has actually said. And the Honorable Dr. Gumbo, who happens to be in the President's office, will also convey the message in terms of the areas that the members have raised as concern. And on that note, may I take this opportunity of thanking both the Minister and the Director and all of you for the live debates and proffering solutions, and for you allowing me to preside over this session from yesterday. Thank you very much, and that ends my tenure of office.
Good morning, honorable members. A very good morning, honorable members. Thank you. Let me start by recognizing the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Mdenda, and his deputy. I also recognize the President of the Senate, Honorable Chinomona, and her deputy in absentia. I also recognize the honorable ministers here present, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocols observed. I am going to take you through the first session of today's business. Unfortunately, some of our time has been robbed by yesterday's business, but anyhow, that is business. I would like to call upon today's presenters to come up here so that they present their reports, the two presenters. Oh, I thought they've got the programs. I didn't know that they don't have the programs because the programs were distributed the day after the day before yesterday. I call upon Honorable Mkarati Gwa and Honorable Chinanjavana to come up here.
And the Honorable Ponor for Agriculture.
I wasn't told anything about him.
Yeah, I think
Honorable Mkonori.
Ponor.
Mponori. Yeah, I'm being advised that the Honorable Mkonori for Agriculture. Mponori. Mponora. Sorry. Honorable Mponora, I also expect you to come here, but we were given a very short time. I don't think we'll be able to finish in 1 hour, 40 minutes. Let me call upon our first presenter, Honorable Mkonora, to come up and present your report. Let me also remind you to be a bit fast because the time is very short. 1 hour, 40 minutes for 3 presenters. It's too much.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, honorable members. May you join me at this juncture to acknowledge the presence of the Speaker of National Assembly, Honorable Mudenda, the President of Senate, Honorable Mabo Chinomona, the Deputy Speaker, Maigezi, Honorable Ministers here present, Clerk of Parliament and his staff, all invited guests. My name is Honorable Novet Muponora. And I'm standing in for Honorable Justice Mayor Wajajena, who is the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of Lands, Agriculture, Water, Climate, and Rural Resettlement. This morning, we are going to make a presentation on the outcomes from the public consultations conducted by the committee. Let me start by looking at the sector overview, that is the sector of agriculture. What's the importance of agriculture in our communities? One of the importance is on food security and nutrition. As well as in our industries, I think the agriculture sector plays quite an important role in providing all the raw materials. Agriculture occupies a central place in the Zimbabwean economy, as is the potential to significantly reduce poverty, enhance economic growth, and enhance economic stability. The sector provides employment and income for about 70% of the population and supplies 60% of raw materials required by the industrial sector and contributes 40% of total export earnings. On the ministry's vision, I think I'll leave that for the minister, as well as the mission of the ministry. We move on to 2019 budget performance review. In 2019, the ministry was allocated 4.4 billion after the supplementary budget. But however, as at 31st of August, the ministry had received about $900.6 million, which translates to almost 20%, 19.77%. And the budget dispersed translates into capital transfers 17.2, lending and equity participation 0.3, goods and services 0.68, acquisition of fixed assets at 4.8. Let's move on to the challenges and proposed solutions. The first challenge is on inadequate funding, and the suggested solutions that Treasury should be encouraged to adequately fund the sector. On lack of adequate tools of trade, that includes vehicles, service equipment, infrastructure and machinery, Treasury must make enough budget provisions to meet both physical and financial resources. And on prices adjustments, it is important to expedite procurement processes by reducing bottlenecks within the system. And on delays in procurement, I think there is a lot to be done by PRAS. Of course, it was revamped, but still the processes are still slow. So there is need to improve the way the business of procuring government assets is done.
Honorable members, let's have one meeting, please.
And on actual budgeted pace and the actual released funds discrepancies, I think is too big. Treasury should try by all means to make funds budgeted for to be available for use by the ministry. Then we go to the 2019 targets, that is priority areas and achievements. The ministry intended to rehabilitate 10,000 hectares and develop 2,000 hectares of irrigation schemes. Only 8,500 hectares were rehabilitated and 750 hectares of irrigation schemes developed. They also targeted to conduct 5 pest and disease surveillance for crops and livestock. There's no V11s for this, whether this was done or not. Then on target number 3, 2 dams were supposed to be constructed, and these are at 90% completion. Target number 5, to provide regular advisory and extension service, the target was met. 5, to develop a national framework for climate services, this was done. And to issue about 200 offer letters, 20 99-year leases, 1,500 A1 permits, only 128 offer letters were issued, and 4 99-year leases were also issued, and 485 A1 permits were issued. Then, on the development of an internal procurement procedure, the target was met. To issue 2,500 security tenure documents, maybe I leave this one for the minister to explain, if it is different from those tenure documents in item number 6. Then to develop and implement an electronic import and export permit system. The work is still in progress. However, I think we need an update on this one. To develop in agricultural information management, this was done. And the last one is to conduct 906 agriculture expos, fairs, shows, and competitions. I think halfway done. Then in agriculture, there are certain uncertainties, which are drought, instability in the economic market, that is the exchange rate, climate change, issues to do with the cyclone Elins, cyclone Idai. Then on the agricultural scenarios game board, we chose 2 factors. One, poor rainfall. The second one, reduced agricultural financing. So if you look at our diagram there, if there is poor rainfall and reduced financing, automatically the sector will be in ICU because there won't be food security and nutrition, as well as the industry will be affected since there will be no raw materials flowing from the agricultural sector to the industry. But if there is reduced agriculture financing and good rainfall, you still find that the yields won't be all that favorable. But when there is increased financing as well as good rainfall, you are expected to get a bumper harvest. That is on the top right side, which is the green box. And in our scenario, due to these climatic changes, if we increase agriculture financing and less rainfall, I think we can still make it, because that increased agricultural financing will be used for irrigation. We can acquire short season varieties. We can plant small grains. Thus, we will be assured of a bumper harvest. Then on the Auditor General's report, I think there are some reservations which were made by the Auditor General's report. For instance, there is 847,000 or $848 million which was directly paid by Treasury to creditors, and the ministry do not have supporting documents to tax as directed by section 81(2)(b). The Auditor General also was concerned about loans issued out under the paid stock facility, which amounted to 10.8 million, and there is fear that this amount may not be recovered. Then the special maize production under Sakunda, about 16 million, dispersed to 2,033 beneficiaries, and the loans have not been serviced. The Department of Irrigation bought 10 vehicles paying almost 520,000 in advance. 6 vehicles were delivered, but they had all the accessories. Plant and equipment not yet received from Solution Motors, that is 2 excavators and water bauza. A compactor and 2 tipper trucks were delivered without clearance certificates, and thus ownership cannot be established. It's too early. Handing of government assets was not properly done when the ministry emerged to form lands, agriculture, water, climate, and rural resettlements. By this alone, there is a danger of some thefts or misuse of government property, because there's no asset register or what have you, and these assets cannot be tracked. Then on priority areas for 2020, I think I'll leave that to the minister. I'm left with only 3 minutes. Then 2020, we are now looking at 2020 expenditure ceilings compared with 29 revised budget. Again, I should not labor yourselves by all those figures, but let's look at the total figures for the budget for 2019, which were 4.4 billion, but the ceiling for 2020 budget is 1.6 billion. So you can see at the discrepancy there that in 2019, the ministry was allocated 4.4 billion, and in 2020, the ministry has been given a ceiling of 1.6 billion. So I think the Ministry of Finance needs to have a relook at that. Then on revenue collection, the ministry has got 5 funds which they use in collection of revenue collection. I've been advised to summarize. Then that the same, let's move on. Then submissions from stakeholders. The committee engaged the following stakeholders in agriculture sector, that is fertilizer and seed companies, cotton companies of Zimbabwe, farmers organizations, the ministry and its parastatals. And the submissions are as follows. The underlying fact is that high costs of agricultural inputs are impacting negatively on farmer viability as well as industry production. Importation of ammonia for the production of AN should be given preference and be included under the list of other essential imported commodities like fuel, cooking oil, electricity, medicines, and water chemicals. I think some of these are for the Minister of Finance. I think he must listen attentively. Then on agriculture production inputs, costs in Zimbabwe are too exorbitant beyond the reach of many farmers, resulting in suboptimal fertilizer usage by farmers and consequently poor yields. In particular, maize yields, if you look at maize yields in Zimbabwe, I think we're still below a ton a hectare. If you compare to Zambia, especially in communal areas, in Zambia, I think they are now at 3 tons per hectare. In Malawi, 2 tons per hectare, but we are still less than a ton per hectare in Zimbabwe. So something needs to be done on this one. Then maintaining of import duty exemptions on ammonium gas is a way of ensuring the price remains favorable to farmers. Duty exemption on capital goods as well as spare parts. Then from the cotton industry, they are calling the Minister of Finance for exemption of rural cotton farmers from 10% withholding tax. Exemption of tax-compliant merchants from 2% tax on other business transactions, as well as exemption on duty on original spares, which currently attract duty of up to 40%. Special funding for the revival of the sector. And in view of the submissions, as well as aware to the fact that the ministry's budget must speak to the Transitional Stabilization Program, the ministry made the following recommendations. Land tenure security should be assured through issuing 99-year leases for larger land reform farms and permits for smallholder farmers. This can be achieved through multi-form tenure systems based on trusted, secure property relations. Budget should cater for the Minamata Convention on Mercury Use, which our Med Services Department rely on. Government should do away with price controls of cereals, just like in the tobacco industry. We are talking of the introduction of the auction system in grain commodities. To have a relook critically at the fertilizer value chain with a view to bringing it back to the period when we used to import only ammonium gas. The ministry should act and close on all outstanding matters raised in the AAG's report. Also, given that the majority of Zimbabwean farmers are communal, constituting 60% of farmer population, supportive measures relating to timely support of affordable agricultural inputs become imperative, especially fertilizer and seed. The ministry must also set clear targets and adhere to PFMA Act on submission of financial reports to Parliament. Then maybe should I take this opportunity to upload the Minister of Finance. During his discussion yesterday with honorable members, the Minister of Finance indicated that he was going to facilitate that the land tenure documents be accepted by banks in accessing loans. Hopefully the minister is going to make a follow-up on that one. Then, in order for the ministry's priorities for 2020 to become a reality, the committee recommends that adequate allocations be given to the agriculture sector, since it has potential to be the driver of economic growth, considering its backward and forward linkages with other sectors. I think due to lack of time, let me stop here, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mponori. I think, or I suggest that we move on to Honorable Mkaratigwa. After Honorable Mkaratigwa, then we are going to pose our questions to the two ministers after they've presented or responded to the reports.
It significantly reduces water and increases crop yields. Today, they offer sustainable turnkey projects that include high-tech greenhouses and advanced control and monitoring open platform.
This open platform wraps up 50 years of experience, put it up in the cloud, use this big data in order to serve every farmer worldwide.
Israel recycles over 86% of its wastewater, by far the highest in the world. The shut-down
I've
treatment
been
plant
requested
takes raw
to
sewage,
let
filters
the
it,
honourable
filters it
members
again with
have a look at that
microorganisms, and
video.
cleans it until it is safe to drink. Tyrannus is an intelligence platform that uses satellite imagery, aerial footage, big data, and predictive analytics to monitor fields and help farmers make the best decisions.
We can image a field in a really high resolution, about 0.1 millimeter per pixel.
Wow.
That means that we can see a tiny insect on a leaf, and then we can train a computer to analyze it and find these insects or weeds or disease and give the farmer a report, and then he can spray according to this report. Just where in his field we can find the weeds, he can apply spraying just there.
BioBee uses predatory wasps to control insects as a biopesticide. It thereby reduces the need for chemical pesticides by up to 70%. Groundwork BioAg uses tiny microscopic fungi to help plant roots absorb more nutrients. This increases crop yield with less fertilizer.
So the fungus penetrates the plant root. It effectively extends that root in an underground web. The fungus can break down nutrients that are otherwise unavailable to the plant and physically mobilize them into the plant.
FF Robotics makes robots with computer vision that can actually pick fruit straight off the trees. Supplant uses big data and sensors to talk with plants to know exactly what nutrients they need and when they need to be watered. With more people on the planet, we need to grow more food with less water and smarter, cleaner processes. This is the next agriculture revolution right here in Israel.
Thank you, honorable members, for watching the video that's on climate smart agriculture, and it's the only way to go, especially during these times of droughts, lack of agriculture financing, and of a lot of other factors that may affect our productivity in agriculture. So we recommend that the Minister of Agriculture should borrow one or two issues from that video. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I would like to call upon Honorable Mkaratigwa to come and give his presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to recognize the Speaker. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm presenting an abridged version of the Portfolio Committee report in the interest of time. By and large, most issues were not new, which points to information asymmetry. This is entropy between the community, miners, both small and large scale, and government, because of lack of budgetary support to the Ministry of Mines, which necessitates serious attention by the Ministry of Finance. My presentation is divided into segments. The outline will cover economic significance of the Ministry of Mines, transitional stabilization program vis-a-vis mining industry, budgetary interventions, large-scale producers, and recommendations for the large-scale producers. Then we'll jump on to the most important section, which is the artisanal and small-scale miners, because they are contributing much more than the large-scale producers. I will also have recommendations for the artisanal and small-scale miners. Then I will go on to the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development and its parastatals before I round up with recommendations for the ministry and conclusion. For the mining sector, the GDP in 2019 recorded a negative growth of 12.3, but we are expecting an increase. We'll record a growth of 9.5. This is the forecast according to the Ministry of Mines. However, the committee had a lot of reservations on this because this calls for a lot of work. And I must say, the Minister of Finance should be able to back the Minister of Mines and Mining Development if this is to be realized, because we are in the negative, minus 12.3, and we need more than 21 percentage points for us to achieve the forecast of 9.5%. A lot of budgetary support is required. The Ministry of Mines' vision is guided by the Transitional Stabilization Program, whose targets include the reopening of closed mines, expansion of mines, and those that are operating below capacity, and opening of new mines, promotion of beneficiation and value addition through domestic smelting and refining to increase earnings from the mineral resource. I must say, Mr. Speaker, that the committee members were very concerned about this area because there are details that are lacking, except, of course, maybe for Eureka Mine in terms of opening of closed mines, but there are no statistics, or we need evidence of the opening of closed mines. And in last year's budget forecast, these items were also there as is, and now we are looking into 2020 and we are hoping for miracles. We actually call upon the minister to probably give us an overview of perhaps how many closed mines were opened in 2019 according to the projections, and how many closed mines were we expecting to open, and perhaps we don't need to dwell on the reasons. The Minister of Finance knows very well why we could not achieve much in that direction, and this is why we are advocating for a significant budget vote for the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development. And the same goes for the expansion of those mines that are operating below capacity. In terms of opening of new mines, I think we have witnessed a number of mega deals, and most of the mines are at developmental stages, and perhaps we need the Minister of Mines to shed more light because we've had a lot of challenges regarding power shortages. We need to take note that this area, the mining sector, in terms of large-scale miners, requires huge capital injection for the equipment. Equipment procurement is a major issue if the large-small sector is going to realize a ramp-up in production. In the second quarter of 2019, there were output losses in most major minerals, and if the challenges are not addressed, the situation will get worse. This is according to the Chamber of Mines. This is in sharp contrast to the 9.5 projections set in the pre-budget strategy paper. The projections are coming from this strategy paper. So there's need for serious budget support if the the projections are to be met. And of course, from the table on the screen, you can realize it's only the platinum sector, which was, of course, we did not record any loss, but neither was there any growth. And also the ferrochrome, which only recorded a positive 10% in terms of increased production. And if you look at all the other minerals, they've been in the negative, going down as much as minus 43% for the coal mining sector. So this is a cause for concern. I'll go on to the major factors contributing to the poor performance that I showed you above. Electricity shortages are at the center of it all. Mining cannot rely on diesel generators, because in the absence of fixed power, you can only resort to standby power systems like diesel generators, but the cost of fuel is very high, as this is 100% imported, save for blending, but blending is mainly for petrol, and major mining operations, they use diesel. So it's totally impossible. And the impact of this is the mineral output losses that we are witnessing, which is expected to be 40 to 50% by the end of 2019. There is an issue of royalties, which are supposed to be paid in Forex. This is pointing to a mismatch. I think the Reserve Bank governor, if he was here, he is responsible for this. If we look at the retention, the 55-45 requirement for retention, and the committee recommended that the threshold should be lifted. I'll go on to the lack of capital and skills flight. It is quite evident. We know very well that it's a noble idea for us to have our own currency, the Zimbabwe dollar, but for years, or for a long time, our US dollar vis-a-vis the Zimbabwe dollar, the RTGS or bond note, was fixed on a 1-to-1, which means the mining sector in particular was able to pay its workers in real value, US dollar, because when they translate, there was no loss of value. But nowadays, because of the interbank rate, which is a noble cause, because we need our own currency, it has seen salaries going down. But unfortunately, our mining sector is actually competing with most mines in the region, or
globally. So we have a lot of serious skills that are homegrown, that are living for greener pastures. And Mr. Speaker say, I'm calling upon serious consideration to some incentives to make sure we retain important skills, because if we are to ramp up production in the mining sector, we actually need skills retention strategies. Mining laws and policies lagging behind. Mines and Minerals Act Gold Trade Act and Precious Stones Trade Act, as well as Minerals Development Policy. The impact is actually on the investment environment remains unattractive because our policies, there are two issues regarding our policies. We need new policies that are pro-investment. But it's not like we don't have policies as we speak. The implementation of policies is actually derived from budgetary support. And we call upon the Minister of Finance to proffer the necessary support to the Minister of Mines so that the departments can be run efficiently. There's a mismatch between the interbank rate and the actual cost of goods and services. And it is important to note that in the mining fraternity, the tools, the equipment that we use, the consumables that we use in the mining sector are mostly imported. I would say 100% imported. So there is a serious impact on production. Then we go on to fidelity printers and refiners. It is enjoying a monopoly, which is becoming untenable for the government given the focus that we are having. So when we look at it, it is seriously affecting the industry in terms of capital and delays of payments by fidelity printers and refinery to the producers. And the producers experience serious losses because of the exchange rate losses that I alluded to earlier on, and we need to seriously consider reversing the negative impact of this. Also, mining fees will need to be reviewed. The industry feels, the mining industry feels the fees are exorbitant and will chase away investment. I'm given 5 minutes only, but Mr. Speaker, I must say this is a very important industry. It's actually the backbone of the economy. Thank you very much. I'll go on to, we have inconsistent policies. Minerals beneficiation takes.
Honorable members, can we pay attention to what he's saying? I also urge you to read through those slides so that you will know what is happening or what is in his report, so that you'll be able to derive your questions from the report.
I was now on inconsistent policies. Minerals beneficiation tax and indigenization regulations on platinum and diamond have been removed. There's been pronouncement only. There's no policy framework to support that, and the impact is these pronouncements have not been translated into law, hence investors will be hesitant where there are policy inconsistencies. Cost of compliance in the trading of gold is high, e.g. Fidelity Printers is not located near producers. There is need to decentralize. Trading of gold on the black market will continue and Treasury will suffer revenue losses if we don't decentralize buying of gold and perhaps do away with the monopoly of Fidelity Printers. SI 142 is affecting local suppliers of mining equipment from importing on behalf of companies. Mining companies now forced to source directly outside the country, hence reducing the threshold, revisiting the threshold of 55 to 45% is mandatory. Delays by ZIMRA to process refunds for VAT and USD and RTGS, sometimes they take up to 12 months. This is not good for business. The impact is on recapitalization, it is delayed, and RTGS component loss of value becomes apparent. I will go on to the recommendations for large-scale producers, Mr. Speaker. There is need for dedicated lines of electricity to mining companies that have paid for electricity in advance. At the same time, contracts signed between government and the industry on the provision of electricity should be honored. The RBZ should increase the forex retention for large-scale producers to 85% in light of the new requirement that producers should pay their electricity and royalties in forex, and also the fact that mining companies are now forced to source their commodities directly from international suppliers due to incapacity of local suppliers. In order to retain skilled personnel in the industry, the Ministry of Finance and the industry need to come up with fiscal, monetary, and other measures which allow for forex-based remuneration. To reduce gold leakages, there is need to strengthen the monitoring and surveillance of operations of Ministry of Mines. Hence, adequate funding should be given to these departments. Let's go. Can you move on to the next one? There is need to liberalize the market for gold. Fidelity Printers should not remain the sole buyer of gold in the country in order to attract investment into the industry. Let's open it up. The Ministry of Finance needs to come up with a new fiscal policy to regulate the taxes, fees, and charges prevailing in the mining sector in line with the ease of doing business. As a committee, we observed that the Ministry of Mines should actually be left to do advocate for its sector, to direct its sector. They are full of innovations, and the Ministry of Finance should provide that necessary stability. ZIMRA should be urged to refund VAT within 30 days according to the requirements. The policy changes on indigenization threshold and unbeneficiated tax should be translated into law. Then we come to budgetary interventions for artisanal and small-scale miners. As you can see, Mr. Speaker, from the tools in the picture, this sector is using rudimentary tools, picks and shovels, and jackhammers. I think prominence should be given to this sector, and a lot of support is needed. I will go on to the challenges bedeviling the sector. Disempowerment of artisanal small-scale miners by the Ministry of Mines through EPOs. There is a general feeling out there that large tracts of mining land is in the hands of a very few, depriving the ASM access, and yet they are contributing more than 60% vis-a-vis the 40% that the large-scale sector is contributing. And the impact is police measures violate Section 13.4 of the Constitution, where communities should benefit from resources in their areas. The resources are there, but they are not being tapped because they are in the hands of the few. The few are playing a lot of politics. They are not extracting. They are waiting for what they think is the right time. They've got their reasons. And in the meantime, the communities are deprived. Mining services and information not readily available to ASM. The impact, unsafe mining practices, environmental degradation, and loss of life, for example, the Battlefields mines disaster. Criteria of disbursement of mining loan fund and RBZ gold facility not clear. Everyone is questioning this one. The impact is the discontentment that it has created in the mining districts that the loan funds are not being disbursed fairly. There is a bad perception out there. Lack of capital and machinery sourcing of machinery is in US dollars. Hence, RTGS payment by Fidelity printers and refiners makes it difficult to recapitalize. This one is a serious problem. Production will not increase among ASM. A target of 40 tons of gold has been set for 2019, but given the challenges, we have serious problems, but we should take lessons from this experience so that in 2020, we make sure we exceed our set targets. Women and youth failing to get access to loans under the Ministry of Mines and the RBZ gold facility due to collateral. Collateral is a major issue, and these are the disadvantaged group, and there is need to seriously consider a facility that will allow them to access funds while maybe the government is guaranteeing them. These groups remain marginalized in the mining sector. Electricity shortages, they are also facing electricity shortages in this sector. It does not spare anyone. Milling companies are operating for an average of 5 hours a day, hence gold production for 2019 is set to decrease. Yet we need the foreign currency. Information gap on the ban of mercury under the Minamata Convention. ASM will not be adequately prepared to adopt alternatives when the ban is effected globally. So we need to seriously look at this, and perhaps the ministry should be given a significant vote so that they are able to come up with alternatives and lead this sector in embracing those alternatives. Otherwise, they will be left behind. MMCs had not plowing back to the operations of small-scale chrome producers like the gold facilities under RBZ. Small-scale chrome producers remain incapacitated because of lack of support by government. Production of chrome will remain subdued. Some large-scale gold companies not operational yet, they have vast amounts of claims, but they're just holding on. ASM remain excluded from participating effectively. tribute arrangement between Zmasco and small-scale chrome miners is skewed in favor of Zmasco. Small-scale miners remain disempowered. Criminalization of ASM operations due to delays in reviewing the Gold Trade Act. ASM operations becomes a risky source of livelihood. They are vulnerable to police raids. Our recommendations for the ASM sector: the Ministry of Mines needs to decentralize its services to the district level, given the prevailing estimates that over 1 million people are engaged in ASM and the downstream effect is quite huge. Not only decentralize, but also make sure they equip those districts. The RBZ Gold Facility and the Mining Loan Fund should be disbursed with a gender lens, particularly for women and the youth. There is need for the Ministry of Mines to close the information gap on the progress made towards the ban on the use of mercury in line with the Minamata Convention. The MMCZ should plow back part of the taxes for the development of chrome miners. The use it or lose it policy should be enacted so that mines that remain closed or underutilized for a long time can be forfeited and given to others with an interest. There's need for short timelines on this particular one, and there must be incentives for those that actually utilize their claims. The Ministry of Mines need to speed up the process of reviewing the Gold Trade Act in order to decentralize the operations of the ASM. Now we come to the resource allocation and funding gap for 2020. This is just a synopsis of what the ministry is looking at, and recent interactions with the ministry have since changed what you see on the board, on the screen, Mr. Speaker. The resource envelope remain at 88.9, but in terms of the ideal requirement, they've shot up to more than 300, Mr. Speaker say, and giving a funding gap of about 211. So we will amend our submission as necessary. Programs for the Ministry of Mines are one, police and admin, which is requiring about 39.5 million, but the ideal amount, that requirement is according to the prescription by the Ministry of Finance. Otherwise, the ideal amount is over 112 million Zimbabwe dollars. And for mining development, the prescription is 49.3 million Zimbabwe dollars, and the ideal amount is over 117 million Zimbabwe dollars. I'm saying over, Mr. Speaker, because we realize we actually have a gap as we speak. We want to restore. We have lost some production, and we are talking of a leap that we want to do to ramp up production to achieve the 12 billion mark. And preparation for the 12 billion mark starts now, because as we speak, the ministry has already launched the 12 billion initiative. It can only be supported and backed by a serious budget. So those figures are actually coming from a suppressed position. Revenue performance, mining fees and charges. Ministry collected 30.9 million by September 2019 and anticipates to collect 41.2 million by December 2019. The Ministry of Finance did not release the entire retention fund, seriously curtailing the operations of the ministry. In 2020, the projections are to collect $200 million and pay a dividend of 40 million. I now move on to the impact of the funding gap, Mr. Speaker said. The cadastral system, it is not yet in place in terms of computerization, but it was there in the 2018-2019 budget, and if my memory serves me well, the amount was not a big figure, given what we are hoping to achieve by this. So I'm appealing, even where I want to shoot my minister, the Minister of Mines and Mining Development, I can't, because he is in need and he is not being supported. So I'm calling upon the Minister of Finance to seriously look into this so that this is operationalized to completion. It must be done once and for all. Legislation. The Minister of Mines made an undertaking to Parliament that by the 30th of October 2019, the following legislation will be brought before Parliament: the Mines and Minerals Amendment Bill, the Gold Trade Act, and the Precious Stones Trade Act. But Mr. Speaker, I must say it's actually sad and disheartening that we have not achieved much on this one. Since July, we set out to work together with the Minister of Mines, realizing that this has been delayed and it was more urgent than ever before. We set out milestones to help each other. We came up with a steering committee, but the findings of the steering committee are disappointing. At first, we thought our ministry, the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development, was actually the one letting us down. Of course, they've got their challenges, they have their weaknesses, I must admit. But from the day that we started working together, I saw determination and I was encouraged until we hit a snag. And without wasting much of your time, Honorable Mr. Speaker, I must say this area requires attention, and perhaps it requires my fellow chairman for the Justice Portfolio Committee. I'm coming to that, Mr. Speaker. The challenge is in the Ministry of Justice. That is the Attorney General's office, to be specific. It's a human capital challenge. They are understaffed. They are relying on one person for discharging all the necessary bills. And this is a major concern, Mr. Speaker. And I feel there is need for concerted efforts, serious engagement between the Ministry of Mines, the Ministry of Justice, and of course, the Ministry of Finance, to be able to seriously consider a budget that will augment the human capital for the Ministry of Justice so that they are able to dispense their duties with efficiency. Because it's not only our bills, there are lots of bills involved. And this is an area of major concern. It's okay, I'll go a little bit faster. My apologies, honorable members. It's okay, I'll wind up. You can move on. I'll go. There is need for government to dispose of the assets under ZMDC after doing a proper evaluation. The committee conducted a budget consultation meeting at Kamativ in Wange West. 2 years, ZMDC signed the agreement with the investors. There has not been much progress towards reopening of the mine. The situation at the mine remains desperate and the mining community have limited resources. In the annual report for the ZMDC, the Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company, it emerged that the company has not paid royalties for 2 consecutive years, 2016 and 2017, on diamond sales. There is need for adequate funding for the cadastral system. There is need to come up with mining fees. Departments for the Ministry of Mines should be adequately resourced. The Ministry of Finance should release the retention fund for the Ministry of Mines on time to enable them to conduct their programs. The projection of generating 8.2 billion Zimbabwe dollars will only be attainable if adequate funding is availed to the Ministry of Mines. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm coming to my conclusion. The mining sector continues to play an important role in the economy, where it provides jobs, infrastructure development and services, as well as generating much needed foreign currency, which has been supporting other sectors of the economy. To this end, Treasury should support the industry and the ministry adequately so that the vision of creating $12 billion industry by 2023 is attainable, and furthermore, Zimbabwe will be able to achieve its vision of becoming an upper middle income economy by 2030. I thank you. Sorry, Chair, but this is an divergent. Chair, thank you very much for your indulgence.
With your indulgence, honorable members, I suggested that I'll call upon Honorable Chinanzwavana to give a presentation so that we'll go into questions once.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Let me acknowledge the presence of the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Advocate J.F. Mdenda, the President of the Senate, Madam M. Chinomona, all protocols observed. I'm presenting on the key priorities for the 2020 budget, outcomes from the public consultations conducted by the Portfolio Committee on Environment and Tourism. Let me hasten to say, Mr. Speaker, that I'm happy to have presented after the 2 other portfolio committees, that of Mines and Agriculture. They say they are very important because they bring the money that we need in the nation. But unfortunately, there is no agriculture when we don't have the environment. It is on this land that we farm. And also, there is no mining if we don't have the environment. Hence, Mr. Speaker, this beautiful nation that we are so proud of is based on the environment, our wildlife, our flora, hence the need to guard on these jealously and seriously consider the Ministry of Environment and Tourism on sufficient resource allocation. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Environment, Tourism and the Hospitality Industry currently has no fund accounts with retentions but relies on voted funds. It is not fully computerized, Mr. Speaker, suffers from none or late disbursements of promised allocations. The resource envelope for the ministry does not take into account the inflationary pressure on the budget. The strategic goals to be pursued in the budget year. Environment and natural resources management, that is, this entails the following: monitoring and evaluation of environment and natural resources programs and projects, implementation of multilateral environmental agreements, research on contemporary environmental issues, sustainable land, wildlife, forest management, pollution management, environmental public awareness, education and training, tourism development and promotion. This involves the items below: tourism marketing and promotion, tourism bilateral and multilateral cooperation, devolution to provinces and domestic tourism promotion, tourism investment promotion, policy and administration. On this one, Mr. Speaker, let me implore on the ministry on legislative amendments. Of the 12 acts that the ministry administer, only one has been brought to Parliament for amendment. That is the Forestry Amendment Act, which has been brought to Parliament recently. All the other 11 remains archaic, Mr. Speaker, and needs reform, especially our Parks and Wildlife Act. I think it races back to in the 1940s, and we can't have that and be open for business, Mr. Speaker, The challenges faced and the impacts on service delivery. The ministry faced the following challenges: late disbursements of funds. As a result, planned programs were delayed. E.g., part of the tobacco levy was disbursed late in September 2020, just a month ago. Carbon tax was released late in October 2019. Inflationary pressure on the budget, planned projects costs were not fully met. Inadequate financial resources, since the environmental issues are being lowly regarded on resource allocation. An example is the 2020 pre-budget strategy paper, which shows the strategic direction on national priorities, never even mentions any environmental management issues. Thus, environmental issues seem to be of no importance to the nation. We need to redress that, Mr. Speaker. Inadequate office accommodation for the ministry officials after the merging of the two previous ministries, that of tourism and environment. Limited access to IT equipment in this era, Mr. Speaker, is an impediment. Limited mobility due to vehicle shortages. We have the Department of Parks. It needs to move in the parks themselves, and at times they don't even have one efficient vehicle to do their duties. Mr. Speaker, context and scope of Forestry Commission. I will not read through all the table. Honorable members, indulge us and go through, but I will just pick on revenue resources are very limited, ill resources to effectively implement the planned programs. Government has to fund the commission to efficiently carry out its mandate functions. On Forestry Commission, the afforestation fund resourced from the tobacco levy was partially released. Only RTGS 13 million. An approximate amount of RTGS 183 million, Mr. Speaker, was collected, because it's not a secret that we do have a tobacco levy, and the estimates are known by the end of the tobacco selling season. And considering the interbank market rate, Mr. Speaker, what was collected should have amounted to 183 million, and only 13 million RTGS was disbursed. That's an anomaly that needs to be looked into, Mr. Speaker. The Forestry Commission, there is insufficient tools to gather information on the state of the forest sector. We need to avail the remaining amount of the tobacco levy. Critical levels reached on commercialized illegal charcoal production and illegal tree cutting because of load shedding. It's a common fact now that we don't have the much needed resource of electricity, and communities are resorting back to cutting down firewood, and that needs control, Mr. Speaker, and incapacitated of the Forestry Commission and awareness monitoring and illegal activities, enforcement of the forest laws, and advance other regulatory activities. Government need to fund the commission to carry out its mandated functions. On EMA, Mr. Speaker said the Environmental Management Agency, the country is faced with the poor waste management of both general and hazardous waste. Water drains are continuously clogged, land and water bodies are polluted, there are frequent reported cases of chronic diseases outbreak in the country. We need construction of engineered sanitary landfills for handling general and hazardous waste. There is a proliferation of illegal dumps in all urban centers and growth points. Water treatment bill balloons, which is a cost to the country's budget. If we may do something about that, we may cut costs, Honorable Minister of Finance. Grants for local authorities of waste management loans managed by EMA of approximately RTGS 100 million is required to construct 3 landfills per year. This is a disaster on us, Mr. Speaker. In this age and era of technology, we are dumping our waste on the open land and is susceptible to fires and other gaseous extracts that may be injurious to our communities. There are only 2 out of 92 local authorities that have properly lined and engineered landfills in Zimbabwe. That is the Kadoma City and Norton. Increased ground and surface water contamination is now happening due to runoff from toxic waste. Increased health care bill due to increased morbidity and mortality. The money for the construction of landfills from the carbon tax, at least we know where it is coming from, Mr. Speaker, has to be hastened. The context and scope on EMA, the situation, effluent management, most local authorities are discharging raw effluent into rivers. An example is Chinoi municipality, because they have no resources to repair their defunct machinery. Effects on desired outcomes, pollution of water bodies, increased water purification costs that are also pulling on the budget. What is needed, Mr. Speaker, is sewer system rehabilitation in all our authorities. Grants for local authorities or waste management loans managed by EMA of approximately RTGS 100 million is required to rehabilitate sewer systems for 10 local authorities per year. I'll go on to Zimpacs. The situation on the ground, most Zimpacs gravel roads are not rehabilitated. An example is the Matusadona National Park, and the lodges there are dilapidated. They are not looking good for us to attract the tourists that we so much need in order for them to visit our destinations. Destinations are inaccessible by road for tourists. Revenue losses for the authority is incurred. This deters tourists from visiting our Zimpacs products. Yes, they are called a low-hanging fruit, but if we can't get there, there is nothing that we are harvesting from that fruit. Urgent infrastructure development is required. For example, resurfacing of gravel roads in the parks and wildlife estates, as well as constructing high-level bridges to improve accessibility to attract our tourists. Commercial poaching is a perpetual challenge in our national parks. So compromises effective operations and is cost prohibitive. Conservation efforts are constrained. So there is need for adequate and appropriate vehicles required for the deployment of the rangers for both wildlife protection and human-wildlife conflict management. People are losing lives, especially around these communities. Mr. Speaker, we once had a public hearing with the people of the Jambezi district there. They were calling on them, if the government does not care enough to see to the wildlife conflict, to relocate them to Harare. Those were their real words. That you are coming here because you are staying in Harare. Our children are being eaten by hyenas here. Our livestock, we are losing it. But others are staying out there. They are safe. Please look into our plight. And that needs to be done, Mr. Speaker said. Context and scope of the ZTA. The first half of 2019 performance. During the first half of 2019, the country recorded 1,115,342 tourist arrivals. This was a 3% decline from 1,148,114 tourist arrivals recorded during the first half of 2018. On the back of the economic challenges, which included fuel shortages, cash shortages, power cuts, and the negative publicity emanating mainly from demonstrations and then the police activity against the demonstrators. It is worth to note that Africa rose marginally by 0.3%, while all major overseas markets suffered decline. So we are not really down and under. We can do better, and it is possible, Mr. Speaker said. Domestic resource mobilization, ZTA generates 60 million from the tourism fund against its expenditure of 153 million, Mr. Speaker. So there is need for them to get something from the consolidated revenue fund. The ministry was initially allocated 36,380,000 against a bid of 64,713,476. The revised budget allocated 47,559,000. Of this amount, 22 million was for capital expenditure for parastatals that was never released. The ministry had spent 19,167,143 for its operations. The ministry was allocated 1,756,000 for employment costs. On the budget performance review, there were no cases of under and over expenditure by the ministry. We want to applaud them for that, according to submissions made by the committee from the Auditor General. The Ministry of Environment, Tourism and Hospitality Industry is complying fully with its reporting requirements in Parliament to provide monthly, quarterly financial reports as stipulated in Section 33 of the Public Finance Management Act, Chapter 22/19. The committee's opinion on performance management for the ministry is fair in view of its limited budgetary support. The ministry economically and effectively implemented the activities as set out in the strategic plan. On human resource issues, the Auditor General established that following the merger and demerger of the ministries in 2018, the ministry retained 3 excess staff incurring unauthorized excess employment costs. The decision to redeploy the 3 excess staff is yet to be finalized. I will skip the key uncertainties, Mr. Speaker, say the environmental scenario game board that we expect, reduce the pressure, reduce environmental pressure, especially on environmental degradation. Yes, we need money. Yes, we need the resource from the artisanal miners, but the land degradation now calls for concern. There is need to look into that. If there may be issues of going back to plow back into the communities and resurface the land that has been degraded, that would go a long way. What we are looking at is a clean, safe, and healthy environment, and increased environmental pressure would be reduced. Where we want to be, Mr. Speaker, say, is on a clean, safe, and healthy environment, and decrease the government commitment to environmental sustainable principles would not see us getting there. KISS 2020 budget priority submissions received from stakeholders. Safari Operators Association of Zimbabwe had this. Considerations should be made to involve private people to do anti-poaching in collaboration with Zimpact. Zimbabwe should develop a zero tolerance for poaching, and registered tour operators should be closed. South African tour operators must be allowed to conduct tours in a company of a locally registered tour or a professional guide. Local universities must introduce open learning for tour guides and offering professional hunters and guide courses. Tourism Business Council of Zimbabwe had this to say: the facility is very critical. The tourism revolving fund is necessary. This facility is very critical in new tourism product development and refurbishments. The government, through the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, RBZ, offered US 15 million support facility in March 2018, but the facility was never utilized due to technical difficulties which the operators faced in accessing it. It is proposed that the tourism support facility be increased to US 300 million, but more importantly with streamlined formalities and affordable rate of 2 to 4% over a length period of at least a 5-year tenure with a 36-month grace period. Contributions on the revolving fund would be as follows: government to contribute 50 million, external partners 125 million, local investors can also contribute 125 million. This is a revolving fund, Mr. Speaker say. Used well, it comes back to the sector and keeps on reproducing for us. The SI 10 of 2018 allows all tourism operators to import capital goods except for restaurants which are not within a hotel. The facility is short-term in nature as it only lasts for 1 year. It is recommended that this facility be extended for the next 5 years given the long gestation period of tourism investment. The facility should cover all designated tourism facilities. Restaurants are an integral tourism component and a flagship outdoor eating place for any destination. It is therefore recommended that the facility be extended for the next 5 years and also cover car hire category, which is currently excluded. The car hire businesses should be included in the facilities so they too can renew their fleets. Boat equipment need to be extended for the next 5 years. Tourism operators should be allowed to renew their fleets, buses, minibuses, coaches, and overland trucks. The proposed extension of the tenure of the duty-free rebate to a longer period of up to 5 years allows for proper planning and mobilization of sufficient resources for extensive refurbishment projects and bigger capital expenditure. The 2-year waiting period. The above rebate facilities only cater for businesses which have been in existence for 2 years. Thus, new business are not catered for. We've been talking of SMEs. They are also in the tourism sector. And while they are in their fledgling times, they don't have to receive this, and it is also necessary for them. In the interest of promoting new investments in line with Zimbabwe is open for business mantra, there is need for a facility which caters for new businesses in this sector. Government to implement the resolutions of the ease of doing business in the tourism sector. Tax reviews. The 15% VAT on accommodation. The charging of 15% VAT on accommodation is pushing the tourism product price higher, thus making destination Zimbabwe uncompetitive, especially within the region. More so, the tax becomes double taxation for these institutions that are tax compliant but are still captured by the net of the fiscal measure. It is recommended that the VAT be reduced to between 5 to 10% for the tourism sector. ZIMRA is requiring payment in foreign currency of 15% VAT on issued invoice, yet every invoice has a 20% liquidation component. It is recommended that ZIMRA correct foreign currency VAT on a pro rata basis, 80% in foreign currency and 20% in RTGS. Multiple licenses in the hospitality sector are an impediment. Hospitality and tourism establishment pay 22 licenses administered by 13 different agencies. Efforts to harmonize and reduce duplications must be made. ZTA must be the one-stop shop for hospitality and tourism licensing. Government to create a one-stop shop for the multiple licensing and decentralize the multiple taxes and permits within the sector. The current system contradicts the ease of doing business and it is expensive. Thus, government should consolidate a myriad of taxes that are making the destination uncompetitive. We need credits for going green. The excessive power outages in the country are heavily impacting negatively on business operations in terms of cost overheads, inconveniencing, which are creating negative perceptions about the destination. Pursuant to the above, it is hereby recommended that the Ministry of Finance consider giving tax credits to the operators who will go green by harnessing solar power and get off the national grid, as this reduces power demand and foreign currency used in importing power. Credits should also be extended to those operators who will not be using fuel-powered cars to electric cars. Credits for increased employment. Tourism is known as a labor-intensive industry. Thus, it has capacity to create more jobs in the country if there is increased investment. It is being proposed that a refundable tax credit of between 4 and 5% on capital expenditure and increased employment in the tourism sector be awarded. The visa regime. The visa system remains partially computerized. Government needs to expedite the whole system so that our visitors spend less time queuing to enter the country, as this impacts negatively on the visitor experience. There is also a need to reduce the average time taken to process a tourist visa by opening more processing counters. The e-visa platform still faces teething challenges and needs upgrading so that it is easily accessed by tourists from different source markets. Unavailability of cash, the bond notes for foreign tourists. Foreign visitors are finding it difficult to spend on goods and services when they go outside their hotels, as cash is not available in bureau de changes. Curio market vendors do not have international point of sale machines. This implies that we are limiting tourist expenditure and the money goes away. The government, through the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, needs to ensure cash availability in bureaus, especially in our tourism hubs, as well as increasing the availability of international POS machines. Victoria Falls International Airport, it needs to be continually improved and get larger for Zimbabwe by international airlines to access them. There is also a need to resuscitate the Kariba Airport to improve tourism in that hub. A queue management system must be introduced at all ports of entry and exit. Signage must be improved at all ports of entry and exit. Fuel shortages have affected tourism operators' ability to offer all-inclusive packages within the destination. Lack of clarity on the tourism sector, acceptance of foreign currency. The SI 1212 of 2019 is making it difficult to charge for future bookings to locals due to high inflationary environment. The foreign currency surrendering period of 30 days is limiting the ability of the industry to refurbish and reinvest. Destination image management. There is a perception management remains very critical for the destination to remain competitive and attractive to tourism, trade and investment. Brand Zimbabwe is seen negatively in different source markets of the world, and it is therefore imperative that ZTA is provided with adequate funding in order to manage the destination perception. A number of negative activities has taken place during the past year, which have attracted viral coverage by social media, as shown below. Here is a slide of pictures. If our tourists see that it is a negative perception, they may think Zimbabwe is not safe, and we need to address those things. We may go on. Fuel not available, and when they come on the queues, there is nothing, and then they are stranded in one place when they need to visit all corners of Zimbabwe. money changers on the streets. This is very confusing for the tourist. He doesn't know of our bond note and how it operates and where to get it. And normally it is being sold on the street. And the tourist does not know of buying money on the street. If the cash then can be available on the ATM machines, that will be better off. Then the empty bakery shelves. People, when they come to Zimbabwe, they also need to eat. And when they want to buy food, sometimes what they need is not available. And that's not good for our picture as a tourist destination. Committee recommendations as I conclude. I'm done. The Forestry Commission must be funded by government because its services cannot be commercialized.
Honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable members, can we give a chance to conclude the report?
I'm now on the recommendations.
Honorable members.
Recommendations from the committee. The Forestry Commission must be funded by government because its services cannot be commercialized. Its revenue generation activities cannot sustain its operations. Large financial resources are needed to carry out all its projects efficiently and effectively. Approximately 328 million is required by the Forestry Commission. I'll go on to the next one. Emma. The committee noted that 14 million, RTGS 14 million from carbon tax has been released to EMA in October 2019. The committee recommends that the Minister of Finance and Economic Development issues RTGS 100 million as waste management loan or a grant managed by EMA.
Honorable members, can we pay attention to what she's saying? She's just about to finish.
I'm finishing off. Zimpax, the committee recommends that the 2020 budgets prioritize agent infrastructure development in parks and wildlife estates to improve accessibility and attract tourists. On ZTA, the committee recommends that the tourism support facility be increased to US 300 million, but more importantly, with streamlined formalities and at an affordable rate of between 2 to 4% over a period of at least 5 years. The committee recommends that the e-visa platform be upgraded. The committee recommends that the government, through the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, to ensure cash availability. The committee recommends that ZTA should be provided with adequate funding to manage the destination perception. We need airline improvement, Mr. Speaker, sir. The disaster that is Air Zimbabwe right now needs urgent attention. If we are to give tourists confidence in destination Zimbabwe, as it stands right now, we are a planeless nation to other destinations. And we need Air Zimbabwe to be financed so that we have aeroplanes that can take in our tourists from outside Zimbabwe to visit this destination. We have no plane going out right now as we speak. Recommendations on the audit. Payments for the ministry should be processed through the Public Finance Management System, PFMS. The ministry should guard against making payments without invoices, and this may result in fraud. Payments should be processed with supporting documents. The ministry should be realistic and astute on running costs under these austerity measures that we are running in. An example is 102,000 for ammunition. The Minister of Environment is not the Zimbabwe National Army. Let's reduce on that one. 55,000 on dog kennels. is rather too much. The nation may not understand if you need 55,000 on dog kennels. This raises eyebrows as well. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee is appalled to realize that the budget strategy paper, which point to the national budget direction, only talks of water and sanitation and excludes crucial environmental issues bedeviling the nation. The committee hopes that funding attitudes on environment and tourism sectors will improve for the better, as we bear in mind that the environment supports all other sectors of the economy. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Shinanzavana. Honorable members, I suggest that we go for tea break. And we are going to spend 15 minutes, only 15 minutes, so that we come for plenary session. I thank you.